Now, Erie's premier podcast. News about music, health, and what's happening. It's Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814, sponsored by Erie Insurance.
Good morning, everyone. I can't believe that we are already a month into Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814. It is week number 4. Again, thank you to our sponsor, Erie Insurance. Just a reminder, if you are unable to join me on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m., you can listen on Spotify for free, or you can find it on LECOMradio.com. It is so simple. When you log on, hit WMCE Live, and a menu will pop up. You can hit the podcast microphone. You can find every podcast on there for your listening pleasure. Podcast number 4 is titled Vital for Our Veterans, as Veterans Day is next Saturday, November 11th. Our guest today from Embracing Our Veterans, it's Tina Scheffelbein, right, Tina?
That's correct.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Pat Case, who does fundraising, coordinating, and decorating, I hear, for the organization Embracing Our Veterans. We also have Vinny Stefanelli coming on later to talk about music for veterans. So good day to you, Tina and Pat. Thank you for coming in today.
Well, thank you for having us.
To share your mission at Embracing Our Veterans. And Embracing Our Veterans, you work to find housing, household supplies for our veterans in need. Tina, tell us more about your mission.
So our mission at Embracing Our Veterans is just that, Natalie. We try working very diligently with our fine organizations in Erie, like the Homeless and HUD-VASH team at the Erie VA, Soldier On, and other organizations to take our veterans off the street and give them a warm bed and the roof over their head.
Boy, that sounds wonderful. You know, where is the office located at? We could start there.
Sure. Our office is located on West 12th Street in Erie, 3823 West 12th.
Open Monday through Friday, Tina?
We are. We're
Okay.
open Monday through Friday, and Saturday is our day of delivery to our veterans.
Great. So let's talk about your services and products that you give to our veterans.
Okay, so I think it's very important, Natalie, to let everyone know that we are totally volunteer. We are a 501c3, and none of us get paid. Okay, so that's number one. So what we do is we collect furniture that is either gently used, or some fine people in our community donate new furniture, and that furniture will go to veterans in need. So we work, once again, diligently with the Homeless Veteran Project that is connected with our Homeless and HUD-VASH team at the VA. So they connect the veteran with our organization, and then we then give them those things that we take for granted on a daily basis, a bed, a chair, cups and glasses.
Tina, let's talk about this small idea that you had and how Embracing Our Veterans came to be important in this community.
So we started out with a truck, my husband, and my 2 boys. And we were not embracing our veterans at the time. My husband is an Air Force veteran, and we found that there was a need for our veterans in our Erie and Crawford area to be connected to services. So we came up with a guidebook that the VA uses now, and a lot of other organizations, to connect our veterans to the services that they need. Then probably a year and a half into it, we were asked to help with our truck to move furniture for the veterans, and that there really wasn't a lot of furniture out there for our veterans. And that's what started the whole thing. We had a friend that owned a secondhand store. Mm-hmm. She would donate furniture to us, and that furniture would be then cleaned up and given to the veterans that were homeless. And then I couldn't believe how many homeless veterans, Natalie, are out there. And there shouldn't be, but there is. And we have to take care of them. So we started out with a truck and my guys. And it just got too big. So we decided to form a 501c3.
So now you have an area and an office.
Yes.
And you talk about your entire staff, including the beautiful Pat Case next to you, that you are all volunteering your services to make this happen.
Yes, ma'am. And we all have full-time jobs as well. So this is something that's near and dear to us, but it is also a full-time job, believe me.
So this small idea, next thing you know, you have this truck and now you're saying to yourself, well, we need to do more. Therefore, how old is Embracing Our Veterans then?
So the Embracing Our Veterans 501c3 is approximately 10 years old, but we've been doing this more like 15 years.
Wow, long time.
Yes.
Now, how do we get in touch? I mean, I know that most of them are homeless.
Yes.
And there's a lot of PTSD.
Yes,
Tell me more of a background on those you serve.
So one of the things, the main obstacles, a lot of them really feel bad on taking anything from anybody.
You are absolutely right. I have seen that through the years. That they are very proud.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. They are. And so we tactfully approach them and let them know that they earn the benefit. It's not something that we're giving them as a hand out. We're giving them a hand up.
Nice, Tina.
And this is, then they can pay it forward because they have the warm bed, the roof over their head, and oftentimes then they feel good about themselves, they get a job, and they're giving back to their community. So some of our veterans that we serve then become volunteers for us.
Right. So community outreach, that's exactly what you do, right?
Yes,
Are you a liaison with the VA too? I mean,
so we work with the division called the Homeless and HUD-VASH team. So what they do is they will take the veteran, then they vet them to say, yes, they qualify for being homeless and needing services. So they get their DD-214, they get their income, if they have that. And then once they're established, that's when we come in, because then we already know that they're qualified for our services.
very nice. So I hear that you know, like the whole staff is volunteers. So how can one become a potential volunteer for your organization?
They can give us a call at 814-636-1950. And that is a phone number that is manned by a volunteer, and they pick up on the calls 2 to 3 times a day. And then we have someone call them back. But I'll tell you what, as a volunteer, I think you get more out of it than sometimes our veterans. Just knowing that you've done something good for your fellow person.
Sure. You know, Tina, they volunteers are the foundation of your organization, aren't they?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And we need them.
How many do you have right now then?
So active volunteers for Saturday deliveries, we have 5 active volunteers. And let me tell you, on a Saturday, they start early in the morning and we don't see them until late at night.
Tell me a story about one of these homeless veterans. Can you help me with that?
Yes, I can.
Because the story is so important.
So approximately a year and a half ago, I received a call, and it was very touching. It was a husband, wife, and 4 children. And he had lost his job, and she was taking care of the children. And they became behind on their rent, and they were kicked out. So we had them living in a hotel for a while, and then as they were approved for services, we then supplied what they needed: the beds for the children, the beds for the husband and the wife. And we noticed that the children really didn't have a lot. We take for granted paper, pencils, crayons, and coloring books, okay? So we made sure that they had some things to do. Well, lo and behold, one day, this family comes in and presents us with a piece of artwork, and I'm trying not to cry. So, it was a piece of artwork with the children's hands on it. Oh. And it said, "Thank you for being there for us and giving us a helping hand." And they said that we made a big difference in their life. So the thank yous from the adults are amazing. But when you get it from young children that are 5 and 6 years old, it comes to a whole new level, Natalie.
It's very, very touching.
Yes, ma'am.
And there is so many things going on out there right now. You have high inflation. Look at now, gas is going up and people's rents, just everything around people right now. It's difficult. It's difficult for a person that is working, let alone for a person that loses their job.
And we're finding more and more of that.
So I hear from you that you have some great community partners.
We do.
I would like to hear more about your community partners. Like if you put them up in a hotel room, is there a community partner that helps you with that?
So we have a couple of local motels that work with us, and they're very thoughtful about that.
Great.
Now, I do have to say there have been a few times that Scott Enterprises stepped up to the plate and allowed our veteran to stay there. And they actually not only stayed there, but they paid for his food. So we didn't have to worry about that. And it was during a time where the weather wasn't so well. So Nick Scott Jr. stepped up to the plate and he said, "Don't worry about it," gave him a place until they could transition him into an apartment.
Well, I think the biggest part about somebody coming out of the service is that transition.
Yes.
Back into civilian life. Tell me more.
Natalie, what I feel, now this is coming from me, is that, and I've talked to quite a few veterans over the year, when they go in the service, they are trained a certain way, okay? But I think what we fail at is when they come back home to train them not to be that way anymore. So we find a lot of that. Again, the post-traumatic stress disorder, we find that they are not worthy of giving them anything. So, and it's one of the hardest obstacles.
Sure, and I believe it affects the entire family too, because I hear of a lot of veterans that come back into civilian life and can't deal or have issues, depression, suicidal thoughts. There are so many things that a veteran has when he comes out of, say, he does a stint over in Afghanistan or wherever he or she is sent, and then they come back, and it's very difficult for the family to reunite. Correct?
You're absolutely right, and even years later, I mean, they could be okay or seem okay on the surface, but years later it peaks. We just lost someone very near and dear to the veteran community recently to post-traumatic, and he committed suicide. And it was a very difficult thing for our veteran community to connect with, because you see that happy face. You always saw him helping someone. And then you find out that that there was an area there that we didn't see, and we wish we would have.
Do you connect, say, somebody that is homeless and we're trying to get them back into the community and integrated into all the different programs that are offered? Is there any statistics or data that show that we're doing the right things here, Tina?
Let me say something, Natalie, and I'm going to take something from my dear friend Pat Case here. We did a whole thing about saving one person at a time. If we can save one veteran from getting depressed from suicide. We have accomplished and we have been successful. We want to do this one step at a time, one veteran at a time. When we go to our veteran, my volunteers know this, and they're amazing, and I'm blessed. They treat that veteran as if they're the only veteran we're serving. And that is something that's
very, very important, Tina.
It is. It is. And we connect with them and we have a friendship with them. It's not just, here's your furniture, let's go. We know these people. And matter of fact, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, that we then deliver food baskets to them for Thanksgiving. And then for Christmas, if they have children, we make sure that they have toys and their food for Christmas as well.
Well, now we can get Pat Case, who is your fundraiser coordinator, decorator, all those wonderful things. Tina, I have to go back because Pat and I rubbed some elbows here not too long ago, and she was telling me about the organization. So therefore, I spread the news wherever I go in regards to people doing good things, like embracing our veterans. So, Pat, I'm glad to see you again. How are you today?
Oh, I'm excited.
So I noticed that you're fundraising. What can we talk about fundraising wise that people can get involved in to help our veterans and this particular program?
At the present moment, we're selling Daffin's candy bars. And are they addictive? It's so good.
That's great.
36 in a case.
Okay.
And only $1 a piece. So if somebody has an organization who say, sure, we'll put a box out, we'd be more than welcome to have people help us fundraise for our organization.
Right. How, I know that we always do Erie Gives. Tina, how did things work out at Erie Gives? Can, people realize that next year they could give to embracing our veterans?
Natalie, I want to take this moment to tell you that you are actually a very big angel to us because, and again, I say this with no disrespect, when we raise money, it's not for advertising. So when, I don't know if I can mention the gentleman's name or not, but there was a gentleman that approached us and said, "Who are you? We don't even know about you. What do you do?" And then we met you, and you're just an angel. You matter to us. You are our biggest volunteer now, getting our word out. We are not going to spend money on advertising, Natalie.
I get it,
so,
Tina.
God bless you. God bless you for having us on.
I'm glad that I have this opportunity. I've been given this opportunity to have a podcast because I want to share all these great organizations that do wonderful work in our community. And that includes embracing our veterans. So, and I know that you've talked with Jim Schaffner. It looks like we have a few things coming up that LECOM has an investment in. So
yes.
Would you like to reveal that, my friend?
I would. So I received a phone call. And I really didn't know who was on the other end right away. And he says, "Are you Tina from Embracing Our Veterans?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "I have a couple questions for you. Who are you?" He says, "I went online and I saw your logo and I just needed to call you." And I proceeded to tell him, I said, "You don't know about us because we don't advertise, but we work with a lot of organizations and we're very busy." So I explained to him what we did, and he said, no, Tina, no, you need to be out there. So he is making sure that our name is out there and let people know what we do because it's an important mission. Erie Gives Day was a blessing to us, but because people didn't recognize us or who we are or what we did, unfortunately, we were not the big man on the totem pole, if you will. And we are so excited for all nonprofits to be supported, especially when they stick to their mission.
So could somebody write out a check to you, send it over to the office? Because you're doing so much over the holidays for our veterans.
Ma'am.
It would be great to have some monies funneled in to feed those veterans that you're talking about.
So, yes, they can make the check out to Embracing Our Veterans, and they can send it to our office at 3823 West 12th Street in care of Tina. And 100% of
You
the
do,
donations.
Tina, and I got to back up because I know that every organization has their administrative costs, but that is so important for people to know that 100% of their money is going to your mission.
It is. I'm telling you right now, none of us get paid. And to be very honest with you, I think if the case and the Shufflebind families were audited, they would find that we support most of the things that Embracing Our Veterans need that we don't want to have them pay for.
That's great. So we do have some things scheduled up for Veterans Day. Do you have anything on tap the week leading into Veterans Day at all?
So, yes, we are in the Veterans Day parade. Leading up to that, it's making sure that float and the music and everything is ready for that parade. We also make sure that if there's a need for veterans to get to the parade, they can always come on that float and join us. So honestly, it's a lot of work.
Oh, I know.
It is. It's definitely a lot of work.
I get that. So just listening to you talk about a family of four children, and this veteran losing his job.
Yes.
And, end up being homeless, and you found a place for them to stay. Then you help them go through the processes of getting the things that they need. And I am sure those child hands that they made a special, what was it, a poster or some type of photograph or whatever?
Because their handprints, definitely.
Was their handprints to let you know that they are so thankful that your organization is out there to help.
Amen to that, Natalie. You can't put enough zeros behind a one to thank us like that picture was.
So, Pat, now I know you and your husband are involved, right?
Yes.
So, and I get to see him once a month too. And I can remember sitting with you and you were discussing everything about Embracing Our Veterans. But how did the two of you become involved? Give me some background on you.
Well, it started out with my husband going for hearing aids at Affordable Care Hearing Aids. And so I would come and visit. And then Tina got started and said, we really need Mike to be part of our board. So that's where I got involved a little bit through that. And then working with Tina and hearing all the things, wonderful things they do, you couldn't help but want to be part of their board. So it gets more and more exciting because I get to meet more and more people. I did not have a lot of experience with veterans. My dad was not a veteran, but my father-in-law was, and he did not get the help that people are getting now. And so it kind of like some way I can make up to him by doing for others that he didn't get the help for. So it's
so
fun.
Well, let's back up because I know you've been calling me an angel, but I believe there's other angels in this room, and that includes the two of you.
Bless your heart.
So, we got the services and the products. Now tell me about delivery. I know that you deliver every Saturday, Tina, or is it once a month, bi-monthly, or?
So are you ready for this? We were doing it every Saturday, but then again, the volunteers and COVID hit, and it was very, very difficult. So we decided every other week, so twice a month. It just doesn't happen because when we get how can you do that? You get a call and somebody says that they're sleeping on the floor. They have no furniture. How can you possibly go home and sleep on a bed when you know somebody else is on the floor? So our team is just amazing. I know it's small, but they're amazing. So when that call is made, they're the ones, we're not waiting. So they get deliveries more often than not, even not on a Saturday. If it's an emergency, they're on it.
Right. So I know that LECOM Radio is going to become involved along with Jet Television. So we're excited about that news.
Am I.
And, the different things that are being bought for our veterans. We're so happy to be collaborating with your organization.
I don't think it can compare to Pat and I with our gratitude and just so thankful that you stepped on board with us. Again, we're a small organization doing a very big job. And there's a lot of other very good organizations out there, but they're more known.
Sure they are.
So we're just very blessed, Natalie, to have you.
I'm hoping that after people listen to this broadcast, that maybe we can get some more volunteers, especially our retired veterans that may have some time on their hands to help a fellow veteran.
Amen. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add to the conversation?
I do want to touch base on this because I think it's very, very important. What we do is because we want to do it. It's not that we have to do it. And I think that makes a big difference. And I do want to mention that my brother, who passed away in 2000, was a Marine. And I know initially starting this, we wanted to do something in my brother's memory. And I'm sure he's looking down and saying, "Good job." So we have a lot of angels supporting us. But again, I'm going to say this: it's important. It's so important. After doing this for approximately 15 years, it was worth it for this moment to know that somebody has recognized us for what we do.
Tina, and we're here for you. Tina Scheffelbein, Pat Case, both from Embracing Our Veterans, and we're coming up on Veterans Day, and I do believe that this broadcast will help Tina and Pat. I'm hoping people realize all the important work that you're doing out there in the community. Is it just for Erie and Crawford at this point?
We have been Erie and Crawford. However, Natalie, we have made exceptions at times when we partnered with another veteran organization that actually needed furniture for a homeless veteran elsewhere, but they picked up the furniture.
Just the thought of a veteran having a bed to sleep in warms my heart. Really does. So Tina and Pat, thank you for all you do for our community. We'll have you back on again.
Amen.
We will talk more.
Awesome.
And do more. And I believe more folks will be finding out about Embracing Our Veterans due to LECOM, Jet TV,
Amen.
and of course your organization.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Much.
Thank you both for coming in today. And now I have the director of music for veterans. It is Vinny Stefanelli on the show to talk about peace through music and building friendships with fellow vets through music. Welcome, Vinny.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We got to go back because there's a storied history of you, Vinny, in the 814, like with your music and such. Can you give us some little background on yourself before we talk about the music for veterans?
All right. Well,
where'd you graduate? Were you
I graduated high school prep.
You were a prepster,
And I tried college and never did very well. I was a couple of years at Edinburgh University studying music. At the time, I was studying with Basil Ronzetti, who was just.
I remember Ronzetti for sure.
And I learned a lot from him. He was great to be with. He was a great character, fun to be with, and a wealth of knowledge.
Speaking of Ronzetti, where was his facility at? I mean, we used to go in there and buy strings and sheet music. Did he have
He had a place on.
It wasn't Parade. That was.
It was Peach Street, I believe. He had a place on Peach Street.
Okay.
And then he went to State Street, 30-something in State. But it was just wonderful studying with him, and there's a lot of friends of mine who were studying with him as well. In fact, he may have brought in a whole generation of musicians in Erie, which is fantastic.
Then you left the 814.
I did.
Did you?
My wife and I moved to New York City, and we lived in Manhattan for 10 years, from 79 to 89, 90 actually, and came back to Erie, and we had our first daughter. We only stayed for a couple of years, and then we went out to San Francisco, and we were in San Francisco for 10 years.
Wow. So you've been on each coast.
Yes.
You've traveled coast to coast, Vinny.
I have.
Interesting. What were you doing in San Francisco?
Well,
Did you do music?
Well, I did not. I was working in the film business when I was in New York. I went there to play music, and after 2 years, I got very disappointed with what I was doing with music. So it was just a tough life.
Yes.
And so I got in the film business, and was working for a company that was amazing. They were doing all major commercials in New York and across the country, actually. And then after my wife told me that she was pregnant, I said, well, we should move out of New York because there's no place to raise a kid. And we moved back to Erie, where our daughter was born. And then a couple of years later, we went out to San Francisco. I was looking to go out to Los Angeles to work in the film business there. We didn't like it so much. So we took a ride up to San Francisco and fell in love with San Francisco immediately.
Oh, I've been there and could tell you that San Francisco is just, yep. I lived in Stanton, Virginia, which is like a little San Francisco. And Stanton is beautiful. I mean, it's all hills, up and down. Yes. I think you stay very physically fit in San Francisco, especially if you're walking around.
Yes. And it's such an open city, and it's a beautiful city, and the weather is nice. We lived actually about 20 minutes outside of San Francisco, on the other side of the Oakland Hills, where the weather was always beautiful. I'd had to put on a jacket to go to work in San Francisco.
And you know, people don't understand when you get like over 300 days of sunshine, how it changes your attitude on life.
Unbelievable. People tend to be happier. You know, you get on the streets and the highway, and it's a different story. But
yes.
But once you get off the highway, it's just there's just a peaceful sort of calm that goes over you when you're out in the sun for so long.
Right.
And if we wanted some snow, we'd go up to the mountains.
There you go.
Go sled riding there.
So then all of a sudden you're back. When did you come back into the 814 then?
We came back around 2002. My dad had passed away, and Lori's parents were sick, so we came back and sort of settled in. It took us a while to settle in, because after you've been into the two cities that we were in, you just have to sort of change your gears and slow down a bit.
So you get back into music.
Yes.
What projects were you working on?
Well, I wasn't working on anything, actually. I was just playing.
Okay.
And I was teaching. I've been teaching since I was 15 years old, teaching guitar, and it was the thing that I knew the best. And so I was doing that, and I was looking for something. I had worked in the film business for a long time, 20 years, and there was no film work for me here. So I had to change gears. Got back into playing, got back into teaching while I was here, and actually to make the connection with Music for Veterans, I was reading a paper about the suicides that are happening in the veterans world community. And I thought, boy, that's just terrible. And I thought to myself, I wish I could do something about it, but I'm a musician. I work in the film business, but how do I do that? And then I realized, looked over my life over when I was a youngster, and came from a divorce family, and music was always sort of a saving grace for me. And I thought, well, maybe it'd be a saving grace for some veterans.
Oh,
and
what a fantastic start.
It was. A friend of mine was teaching yoga, and she said, you should go over and talk to the vet center because they might be interested in having music classes for the veterans. I thought, I don't know. So I went over and talked with with the person who was managing the vet center at the time, Bob Martin, and he liked the idea, and he said, well, I'll call you sometime. And I walked out thinking, he's not going to call me. I've heard that line before. And he called me in about a week, and he said, I've got some people that you'd be interested in meeting. They're interested in music. And I went, oh, okay. So at first, I thought I'd missed the mark because I walked into a room full of people who were 50, 60, all the way up to 93 years old, veterans. And I was looking for the young veterans who were just getting out and just coming back from Afghanistan, Iraq. But I went in and it was like a history class. There was people who were in the Gulf War. There were people who were in, Korea.
Yes.
The Second World War, Vietnam. There's a lot of Vietnam veterans. In the Second World War, people, one was somebody who was in the Air Force, and during the Second World War, he got captured and stayed 35 months in a Japanese prison of war camp. There was another person who was 93. She was a photographer, and she followed a general through Europe after the Second World War to document the destruction of Europe. And it was just unbelievable. And so I thought, they're interested. I'm interested. I'm the one.
Nice.
So we started, and I was wondering, how the heck am I going to do this? And it just sort of everything fell into place. It was one of those things where it was meant to be, and I found that out soon. But I did get to know some of the Vietnam veterans. They were closer to my age, and I did ask John, one of the veterans. I said, Vietnam decades ago. Has time not healed the wounds? And he said, well, I'm retired now. The kids are gone. I've got nothing but time, and time can get you in trouble. Having
yes, it
time.
can.
And so I said, well, okay, maybe I did miss my mark. And so we just kept continuing. Now, John and a couple of other of the veterans who were with the program now were there in that room when I walked in that first day.
So here you're in a circle of folks talking history of generations.
Yes.
And this is where it all begins.
Yes. And so I really had no idea what I was going to do. I knew I was going to teach them music. And it just sort of fell through the whole thing just fell in place perfectly because I never realized the camaraderie aspect that veterans have. I know that musicians have camaraderie. As soon as you meet a musician, what do you play? What kind of music? What kind of instrument do you have? What kind of guitar do you have? All these things. It's the same thing with veterans. They get together. It's when were you in? What branch? Were you deployed? And all these things, all these questions. And there's this comfort level that veterans find being around other veterans. Who knows a veteran better than a veteran? No one. Not the spouses, not the kids. Maybe if they were veterans themselves, but no one knows a veteran better than a veteran. And so this is all a good learning experience for me. It was a history class for me. It was learning about veterans, and I never asked any questions. I didn't think it was my business to ask any questions, and I didn't want to stir up anything that was going to be a trigger for them. And so I learned to just sort of listen. Being a musician, that's one of my
that's what I was going to say.
So
listening's important.
So I listened, and when somebody wanted to talk, the whole room listened, and the conversations were across the board. Everything about the spouse, the kids, the grandchildren, and then once in a while somebody would come up and you could tell that they had a problem. And I would just sit back and listen, and I would see the veterans around the room tuning in. And they would walk up to somebody and put their arm around them and say, hey, we know exactly what you're talking about. And I thought, okay, I'm going to facilitate this. I'm going to talk music. And when there is an issue, all these people are here to help with those issues that veterans have. And we have two roles. One is we don't talk religion, and one is we don't talk politics. So there's very seldom arguments.
I was going to say that pretty much wraps that up.
Yes.
But those are good rules to follow.
Yes.
Because everybody has their own opinions when it comes to religion or politics. So
yes.
that should be a rule in every household.
In every house. Exactly. So it's been a wonderful experience. I mean, October, we have an anniversary. It was October 2011 that we started the program. And things have grown like crazy. We've had hundreds of people pass through the program. Some of them will come back after 3 months. Some of them won't be around for a year or two, and then they'll show up, and they're always welcome back. It doesn't matter, and they really don't feel like they've missed anything because we just get together and play music. They may have missed the songs that we learned.
Well, Vinny, growing up with a musical family too, that is all we ever did.
Yes,
is sit around and play music and sing and.
Yeah.
We weren't playing video games and we weren't doing all those other things.
No.
My dad would turn around and put instruments in our hands. Here, Nat, here's a guitar. Try this out. I had two sisters that played the mandolin and he played the banjo a bit and the 4-string tenor guitar. And so, we made our own entertainment.
That's right.
And I'm sure that's where you came from too, because a lot of the Stefanelli boys can play great music.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. My brother and I are both musicians, and Sundays there was always Frank Sinatra or some type of Italian music playing on the stereo.
Right.
When my dad first took us to get our instruments, we walked in. I can't remember where the store was because I was about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years old, maybe younger. And he said, pick out an instrument. So my brother went to the guitar, my sister went to piano, and I walked in, I saw a string bass. And I'm this high, and the string bass twice my height. And I said, Dad, I want that. And he goes, no. And so I insisted. I kept staring at that bass, and he walked over with an accordion and handed it to me. And I thought, okay. It lasted about a month.
The accordion.
The accordion, yes. Well, I lasted about a month with the accordion. So my brother was playing guitar, and he'd go into the room, and he'd pick up the guitar and play, and I'd just sit there and watch him. And so I was learning as he was playing, as he was learning. And he'd walk out of the room and say, don't touch my guitar. I don't want to touch your guitar. And he'd walk out the house, and I'd pick up his guitar and play.
Absolutely. That's the way it works.
Yes.
So we have Vinny Stefanelli on, and it's Music for Veterans. That is his organization. And I the mission, Peace Through Music. Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
Well, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about being a musician. Everything gets focused when you're a musician, when you're playing music. You're focused mentally on playing. You're focused physically on playing. You're focused emotionally on playing. And I've come to realize that you're actually focused spiritually because it all comes together. And so you have those moments where you forget about the world. Whether you're playing at home in a room by yourself or you're playing with a group of people, there's a point in music where you don't know what's happening around the world, nor do you care because you're at that moment. You found your moment.
Right. And I love being on LECOM radio because it plays all the old ones. Takes me back to when we were spinning the vinyl and,
yes.
Back in the day when we were buying 45s with Pepsi Pop bottle money and things of that nature, right? But it brings back great memories.
Yeah.
And, I know that music is so soothing for so many, and to bring that to veterans is outstanding.
Yeah. Well, we are not therapists, and we're real clear about that because I had some repercussions when I said music was therapeutic. I had heard from some music therapists that I can't say that, so I don't say it anymore. But it is. Damn it! It is.
It is. It truly is.
And when you go into a room by yourself, and here's the story I heard from a lot of veterans. They wake up in the middle of the night, nightmares, whatever the case may be, and they walk around the house, and they bat down the hatches and make sure that the place is locked up and check all the perimeters, and they'll sit there sometime, stare at the wall or watch TV or whatever the case may be. And I said, let's substitute that. After you've checked the house and such, pick up an instrument, go to the other side of the house where you're not going to bother anybody, and just play music. And there's something about in the middle of the night when it's quiet and there's only you and your instrument, and you start playing, and
You're never alone with an instrument, are you?
no, you're not. You're not. And if you are, you're enjoying it.
Yes.
And so and then you find that moment, and you find some peace, and then you get tired and you go to bed, and it's the world is okay now. And so that's what I found with the veterans is I told them, look, this is what's worked for me. And so you pick up the instrument and you just play. So what I do is somebody comes in, if they know how to play, fantastic. They can just sort of fit right in. If they don't know how to play an instrument, we ask them what instrument they want to play. If we have one available, we give it to them. If we don't, we help them find one if they can't afford one. And then we teach them the instrument. And once they start getting comfortable, they start playing the songs that we've been playing. But I made it real simple when I started this. I took every song and changed it to the key of C. And I taught them 4 chords, C, F, G, and A minor, the principal chords in the key of C. And so with 4 chords, they can play 10, 20 songs. I mean, I usually say that to them. I say, once you get the knack of this, in a month or so, you're going to be playing 5 songs, 10 songs. And they look at me like, yeah, right. And
once you get past the fingers,
the mechanics,
the hurt on your very own fingers.
Yes,
I do believe that's how it started with me. If I could get past that hump,
yes.
Then you can play. And I'm a rhythm guitarist. I'm not the best at it, but it is quite soothing, and it's so wonderful to hear that you do this with veterans and for them to find their way,
right,
musically.
Right. And so once they get past that physical aspect of it, then they see those little accomplishments. Mm-hmm. Now, these are people who've been trained, who've gone through basic training, right? So they understand that that it just takes time and takes some effort. So I didn't know this, but when I was training them, similar to the service, where they come in and we train them. First thing we do is train them. We assign them certain things that they have to do, and they go through the training. Once they go through the training, they're part of the band from day one.
I love that.
From day one, we have some people who just sort of hold the guitar and sing, because everyone can sing. Everyone sings.
That's right.
And so. Once they come in, we train them, but we let them into the quote unquote band, and then after a while, I start seeing, these guys are sounding pretty good. Maybe we should go out and play.
Yay!
And so so we went out and played, and after we did the first gig,
I was going to say, where was the first gig?
Well, one of the first gigs was a picnic out in Northeast, and it was. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name of it, but it was a great organization. They had a picnic every year, and so they asked us to play, and we said, sure, that's fantastic. Well, I was thinking it was a picnic in a backyard. I didn't know that there would be 1,000 people there. So at the time, we actually had another program called the Military Kids Music Program. And so kids whose parents were either active military or veterans, we taught them music, and they hung out together. And it was fantastic because these kids understood what it was to have a parent who was active duty or a parent who was a veteran. And the statistics say that there's a good chance that if a veteran has PTSD, the kids might as well. They might have it as well. And so these kids were perfect together. They all had this pride that mom or dad was a veteran or mom or dad was in the military. And at the same time as I was working with the veterans, I was working with the kids program. And so I told them, hey, we're going to be playing at a picnic. And they said, oh, fantastic. And so we went out to the picnic, and it was out Northeast at the...
It was at the Gravel Pit Park. And that's a big stage.
It's a huge stage.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And they had a huge flag behind us. The picture is on the website. And but there was about 1,000 people or more there. And I had my daughter come in. I'm not a veteran, but I had my daughter come in so I could make that connection between myself and the kids. And she was a really good person to have there.
Liaison,
yes, thank you. And so we go there and we drive up and the place is packed. And my daughter walks up to me, grabs my collar and says, "You said this was going to be a picnic." I was expecting 20 people in the backyard. I said, "So was I." That's
a big stage, Vinny.
That was one of the first gigs that we played. And it was really good because it broke the ice for us. And I had one of the veterans come up to me and say, "You know what? You just filled one of the bucket lists for me." I said, "Really? And what was that?" And he goes, "I've always wanted to play in a band and play out." And I thought, well, what the heck? Let's do this again. And so when people call up and say, "We have an event, we'd like to have you play," by now we've been at it for a long time, and we've got a good deal of songs, and we sound pretty doggone good.
Oh, I bet you sound god darn good.
And so so we'll be playing at Mercyhurst. They have a celebration of valor at Mercyhurst every year. We play that. Joe Bonacci from the Veterans Department, the County Veterans Office, he has an event that's happening just before Veterans Day. We're going to play that. We've played way too many gigs this year.
Yeah.
And because
but I get too many gigs.
Too many gigs.
I feel that. I know what that feels like.
And so some of our people are in their early 80s. Some of the young people are in their mid 40s.
You know what, Vinny, thinking of Vinny's, I know my cousin Vinny, who plays the accordion, plays with you. It's Vinny Jaskowitz.
Oh,
do you know Vinny?
I love Vinny. Yes.
Vinny's a great guy.
Yes.
And I saw him on your website. I'm like, I had no idea he was doing. Next time I see him, I got to have a chat with him.
A number of years ago, we played at an event at the convention center. I think it might have been, I'm not sure what the event is. It was a long time ago. And in between songs, Vinny would walk around the room with his accordion. He'd work the room. There was hundreds of people there, and there was a bunch of kids from Fairview School, and they loved it because he came in the middle of them. He was like the Pied Piper.
Yes. Well, you know, the accordion is a cool instrument.
It is.
You know, I grew up in a Polish household.
Yes.
There was always an accordion somewhere, too.
That's right.
So when I saw Vinny in the picture, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that Vinny was. So how many musicians are in the band, and do you do different genres? Like, I'm curious.
Well, I sort of dictate what songs we do because I know which ones are going to be easy and which ones aren't. But everyone in the band brings songs that they'd like to do, and we sort of filter through the ones that are easier for us to pick up. But we do a lot of 70s rock. We do a lot of folk, and we do a lot of country music. And the old stuff, the Hank Williams and the
Johnny Cash.
The Johnny Cash. And it was been a great learning experience for me because I never played country. I never listened to country. And
did you realize, Vinny, after you listen to country, and I'm the same way, but the words all speak.
Well, yes, they do.
Broadly.
Yes.
To the community.
So, and the poetry.
Yes.
You'd never expect, I wouldn't expect poetry, but I was listening to a Hank Williams song because everyone said, well, we want to play some Hank Williams. So I'm listening. I'm not a big fan of his voice, but there's one song, some of the lyrics are the silence of a falling star lights up a purple sky. And I thought, wow, where did that come from? That's amazing.
Impressive.
Just amazing. And still I wonder, where you are, I'm so lonesome I could cry. It's like,
I could sing that right off the top of my head. One of my dad's favorites.
There you go.
But you do have music sessions then.
Yes.
Are you taking on new musicians all the time, or is that something?
We're always looking for veterans who are interested, always. When we go out and play, that's one of the things that I do is I call out to the audience. You know, we're the Music for Veterans band, and if you're interested in getting together with us and playing some music, join us.
So you do you do this every week then, or do you have a space?
Well, we don't have a space, but we have the wonderful people at Salvation Army on 11th and Liberty, and it's become our home. And They allow us to come in every Tuesday evening and play. So we get together every Tuesday evening. And something strange happened. Well, it happened across the country. But when COVID happened, we stopped getting together. And the members of the group were a little upset. And I said, look, no one's going to get sick on my watch. No one's going to die on my watch. So we're not getting together. And then I started thinking, well, everyone else is getting together on Zoom. Maybe we can do that. So in 2020, we started getting together on Zoom. It was interesting because...
Did you play on Zoom?
Well,
I'm curious because I see there are videos, I don't know if you've seen them, of people singing those songs clear around the world together. Have you ever seen any of that?
I have seen a lot of that. I love those.
I love them too. So it'd be really cool to see, you all do that on your Zoom.
That's one of the things we'd like to do. But for now, what we do is only one person can play at a time because of the latency of Zoom.
Yes.
And so I said, okay, let's just picture in our minds that we're sitting around somebody's living room, and each one of us takes a turn to play. And in between, it's the same thing that happens when we get together. There's dialogue about what's going on with everyone's life and such. But it was interesting because we were local in 2020, up to 2020. And we actually start spreading out regionally to some places in Crawford County, and we went to Ashtabula to play at a couple of the American Legions there, and New York, Chautauqua County as well. But in essence, just locally. And when 2020 hit and we went on Zoom, what happened is when people called from around the country, I would usually say, well, we're only up in northwestern Pennsylvania, but I can try to help you find something in your region. Now I say, join us on our Zoom call every Wednesday evening. And so we have people who live in Washington State. We have people who live in Arizona. We have people who live in Texas. We have people who live everywhere across the country. Now, not a lot, but enough that we've spread our wings now, and we've reached a lot more people. And then throughout the week, I give individual lessons to people around the country on Zoom, which is nice.
Wow.
So
you got a lot going on, Vinny.
I know.
You have a lot going on.
Actually, I'm like the tail chasing the dog.
I'm the same way. So you offer lessons too as well.
Yep.
You talked about the clinical success of program data that says that music soothes the soul, and it truly does.
It's the information, the statistics have been around for years. And it helps in so many ways.
Yes.
And the socialization is very important because the isolation of veterans is a problem. They come back and they find themselves isolated because not a lot of people understand what they just went through. They've been gone for 2 years, 20 years, who knows what. And they come back to being a stranger in a strange land. I had who became a good friend of mine. He was in the Navy for 20 years. Wasn't in combat, but he traveled around the world. And every day for 20 years, he wore a uniform. And day one of his retirement, he said he stood in front of the closet for about 15 minutes, wondering what to wear. And his wife eventually said, here, wear this. She pulled something out on the hanger. And so it could be the smallest things like changing from a uniform to civilian clothing to you hear about veterans who are driving down a street on garbage day. And it's a panic to them because they see all these things along the side of the road.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to change. There's a lot to adjust to. And this support system that we have is really a nice thing because they're around other people who have seen and done the transition.
Vinny, I am so grateful that you've come on the show today to talk about music for veterans. It's Vinny Stefanelli. And what a great organization. If anybody wants to give, what do they need to do? Can they write a check out, send it to you? What can they do?
We love to have people send a check. But we also, if someone doesn't have an instrument, can't afford an instrument, or doesn't want to make the purchase before they try out the program, it's nice to have people donate instruments.
Great.
So
that'd be great too.
So I have a room in our home that my wife is very patient with me.
I bet.
And she doesn't mind that I have guitars all over the room.
That's fantastic. Love it.
But if someone wants to donate an instrument, it's fantastic. If they want to have us play at one of their events, because that's outreach for us.
How about a phone number?
Yes.
Can you give us one?
Area code 814, of course, 873-4500. 814-873-4500. The Music for Veterans address is music4veterans.org.
Okay, great.
And then my personal email address is director@music4veterans.org.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. To everybody in the 814, don't forget this week we've got Veterans Day. And these great organizations certainly help, and especially when it comes to music, Vinny. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
You've been tuned in to Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814, sponsored by Erie Insurance on 88.5 and 102.7 LECOM Radio.